Hello, travelers. My name is Thomas the Human Bard, and I am joined today by...
Mercy the Tiefling Wizard.
Onog the Half-Orc Barbarian.
And I'm Bean the Rock Gnome Rogue.
And we are on a... Side quest!
Side quest.
Celine Dion side...
Ooh.
What was that?
Just a bard visiting.
Oh, nice. Today, we are discussing Unearthed Arcana 2020 Subclasses, Part 4. Ooh, we're 4 parts in to this unknown how many parts there are series of subclasses. As Wizards, I believe, refines their subclasses for a future book that they're planning on printing at some point. In today's Subclasses, Part 4, we are discussing 2 spooky options.
Yes!
In this document provides 2 playtest options: the College of Spirits, a bard subclass that learns stories from spirits, and the Undead, a new warlock subclass whose patron is an undead being.
Now, when I first heard the Warlock of the Undead, I thought, wait, don't we already have that?
Correct, which we will discuss when we get there. The Warlock, the Undying patron, is already a patron, and the difference between Undying and Undead...
The Undying isn't undead yet, it's still Undying.
Well, I think
they're on either sides of that door. Yeah,
well, and there was like the Raven Queen. We'll get to that later.
We'll get to that, yeah. So let's start our discussion today with the Bardic College of Spirits. At 3rd level, a bard gains the Bardic College feature. So for the College of Spirits, stories of the past are powerful.
Oh,
they hold
I thought
lessons...
this was like the cheerleading bard college.
No, I thought it was the alcohol bard college, but both of our puns aren't very good, so we'll move on. They hold lessons of history, philosophy, and magic. Bards of the College of Spirits seek the stories of those from beyond the material plane. Using game sets, they reach out to hear their stories, but the bards have no control over what story they find.
Is this the Ouija board bard?
It, in fact, is literally the Ouija board bard.
It's literally the College of Ghost Stories.
It's literally the College of Talk to Ghost through a board. At 3rd level, Guiding Whispers. You can reach out to spirits to guide you and others. You learn the Guidance Cantrip, which doesn't count against the number of bard cantrips you know. For you, it has a range of 60 feet when you cast it. Guidance is normally a touch spell. Mm-hmm. You become a better guidance bot than like any cleric I've ever seen in my life.
That's not bad.
But
60-foot guidance cantrip ain't too shabby.
I guess besides being a sorcerer
with
a spell specialty, is there any other way that we can think of that makes guidance have a range this far?
No.
That's pretty cool.
Using a familiar on a wizard?
Yeah,
that's
sure. You can cast it through a familiar.
Yeah, but you can send your familiar...
That's true.
To go touch them.
I know, but it's not the same.
It is similar enough that if I didn't mention it, someone would yell at us
I am really surprised, though, because normally I'm the one who's kind of saying it's basically the same thing, and you're the one semanticing me. Spooky.
Spooky. Topsy-turvy.
When you said semanticing, all I could think of was semantickling. And now is that when you're like...
That's the somatic components of my spells, is I have to tickle someone.
Tickling someone, yeah. Spiritual Focus, 3rd and 6th level College of Spirits feature. Your practice of contacting spirits can employ special tools. You can... Special food. Remember that one? That was a good one. You can use the following objects as a spellcasting focus for your bard spells. A candle, a crystal ball, a talking board, a Taroka deck, or a skull. Taroka being the D&D tarot deck.
Is tarot copywritten?
No.
I don't know. But
they just wanted to avoid it because of the satanic panic?
Maybe, I'm not sure. Taroka is just very specifically built into D&D already. They do, Wizards of the Coast does sell Taroka decks.
We have one.
We do have one. So maybe it's just like a clever way to get
and
it
is different so that they can build in their own mechanics for it because it isn't the same cards. Yeah.
It is a completely different deck layout.
Can it be used as a deck of many things?
I don't know.
I don't think so. think the deck of many things is a completely different deck.
Okay.
Yeah, that like is its own.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it has its own things and like its own cards and symbols and stuff, but it just has, and then you can use a normal deck of cards as a replacement for that. So I wasn't sure.
Oh, really?
If like because it's like got the knave of spade and like knives or something, stuff like that, instead of like this is a 3 of clubs,
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah. At 6th level, when you cast a Bard spell that deals damage or restores hit points through the spiritual focus. So if you're using your tarot deck or your Ouija board in combat to cast damaging spells, roll a d6. You gain a bonus to one roll of the spell equal to the number rolled. So you either heal a little more or you damage a little more.
That's pretty good.
Whenever,
I like that.
If you're using your spiritual focus, that would be every time you cast a spell.
Yeah, that's good.
Unless you get separated from it somehow, I suppose.
I do like the idea that in battle, you have to cast a spell, and you have to, like, sit down and put your hand on the planche of the Ouija board. Or,
Planchette.
spirit talkie board. Because Ouija is copyrighted.
Ouija is copyrighted, that's correct.
Yeah.
The spirit board, and you have to be like, all right, I need everyone to relax. I need one other person.
Can someone turn off the light?
We have to keep our fingers on here really lightly.
We'll get there.
The bandit across from you walks up. He's like, okay, I'll do it. And then as he does it, it's like vicious mockery. He's like, no! Ah!
On that note,
I shouldn't have done it.
With the exception of stealing magical secrets from other class, I think, like, if I remember correctly, and there are obviously exceptions, but one of like the only bard spells that actually does damage is like vicious mockery. There are obviously other ones at higher levels, but
Interestingly, I looked this up recently, and it's sort of a weird gray area in D&D. So when you cast a spell through your spiritual focus, technically you only use an arcane focus.
Right.
If it requires a material component.
Correct. Yes. So it would have to be a damaging or healing spell that requires a material component. And if it doesn't, then you don't get to use it. Which is a weird... It's like... It's more finicky than you'd think it is. Also, on a little bit of a separate note, this is one of the few new magical focuses that it doesn't care how you get another one. If you lose your crystal ball, there's no, like, after an hour, you can get another one.
Right.
Just go buy another crystal ball. Just
gotta go find another skull.
If you have another skull in your bag, you're good to go.
Well,
it doesn't care.
Carry a bag of marbles around, because you could just be like, it's a really tiny crystal ball.
Small crystal ball. That's very good. What's the definition of a talking board? Can it just be a piece of wood that I drew some letters on?
This is an index card that just has like yes, no, maybe on it.
But you can use like any candle. So it's like as long as you can find a candle nearby, you can use it as this spell. You don't even have to like attune to it or anything. Yeah.
So as far as I can see, based on your previous comment of technically for something to use your focus, it has to require a material component. The first bard spell I can find in alphabetical and spell level order, the first bard spell I can find that requires a material component and does damage is Cloud of Daggers, a 2nd level spell.
Oh, that's spooky though.
That is spooky.
That is good and spooky.
Does
Vicious Mockery
Vicious Mockery only requires a verbal component, and Cure Wounds, the other side, to heal, does not require a material component.
Okay, I mean, I guess it's good that Vicious Mockery doesn't, but I love the idea of sitting down and being like, oh, let's see what the spirit board has to say. Wow, it says you're a little wuss, and then that's how you like...
That's very funny.
Yeah, that's very good.
It's one of those things where you
think of it as casting it with every spell.
Yeah, I feel like that's one that's gonna get frequently misinterpreted.
But there's not, I mean... Yeah, what's the biggest downside if you accidentally do it?
It's just better. It just makes it better.
You're just slightly better. Yeah.
I'm not mad about it.
It's not big enough to change your entire game. It's at 6th level, 1 extra d6. I'll allow it, most of the time. If somebody complains to me enough, I would probably allow it anyway. I'm interested to see if anyone ever gives a sage advice response on Twitter or something like that to that question, because I think enough people will be confused, and it will cause enough questions at a table. They'll be like, I cast Vicious Mockery through my spiritual focus, and they'll say, oh, you can't. They'll go, what do you mean I can't? And then they'll end up tweeting at Jeremy Crawford.
I mean, yes.
If I remember correctly, I think that has already happened, and we have gotten both answers once again.
Oh, fair enough. That does happen. You do get that every once in a while.
I mean,
I guess it's up to your discretion.
I was going to say, this is kind of, at least for me in my experience in D&D, the first time of whether it really matters if you're casting from your spiritual focus or not. Because for the most part, it's kind of just flavor, right?
Yeah.
Generally speaking, new focuses don't really do anything like when you cast a spell. It'll say like while you're holding it, you can do stuff. But it doesn't say when you cast a spell through it.
Yeah. So this is the first time I've even thought to worry about that.
The reason that I know exactly that this is a problem is because I actually designed a subclass recently that I came up to this exact problem. I wanted it to be when you cast a spell with this focus, a thing happens. And then I went, wait a minute, what about spells that don't need a focus? And I had to look up all the rules about it. So maybe we'll talk about that subclass at some point.
I feel like this is a situation, though, where if you're saying that there have been split opinions from D&D creators about it, then I feel like I would lean towards saying, don't worry about it, use it for all of them. Because 1d6 at 6th level is not game-breaking, so just... And it's frustrating to have a class ability that you feel like you never use.
Yeah, weirdly.
I would allow it all the time.
Fair enough. All right, so this next ability is... It has a table to it, a 12 option table, which we will try to get through all of, but we may kind of rush through a little bit. But we'll talk about it first, and then we'll talk about the table separately.
Oh, guys, that's a big table.
That's a big table there.
I'm just a little gnome. How am I going to fit up at this big table here?
Who's this other gnome? Bean, who is this other Canadian
Minnesotan gnome?
Oh, sorry. This is my uncle. This is my Uncle Pistachio.
Oh, hi, Pistachio.
I was going to say
cheddar.
Oh, hey there.
This is a pretty big table here. I was just going to come up and... But it's big. I think I'll just go and let you do your podcast there.
Yeah, you get out of here.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, you guys.
Here's the thing: we actually didn't invite you to this big table.
We're actually on a side quest right now. It's very.
How did you find us?
I noticed.
We're in the middle of the woods with a giant table.
I noticed because I was like, "What? There's a big table out here in the woods," and Bean had said that you all needed some more hemp and rope for your side quest, so I just brought this. Here, hemp and rope. Let's see what the Foley artists used for the sound of it plopping on the ground there.
You brought hemp and rope. We asked for hemp and rope. Oh, this is so embarrassing.
Oh, got it.
Sorry, Pistachio. Well, head back to town.
Sounded like an anvil just dropped.
You also dropped a metal anvil on the ground. Head back to town so I can keep talking, please.
Oh, okay. Sorry, this bit got a little out of control there.
Oh boy. Tales from Beyond. Tales from Beyond. Ooh. 3rd level College of Spirits feature. You reach out to spirits who tell their tales through you. While you are holding your spiritual focus, you can use a bonus action to expend one of your Bardic Inspiration dice and roll on the Spirit's Tales table using your Bardic Inspiration die to determine the tale told. You retain the tale. You tell the tale you told the tale. Retain.
Did they do that on purpose?
Retain the tale in mind until you bestow the tale's effect or you finish a short or long rest. Okay. Real quick.
Basically, you get a cool effect and you keep that until you use it.
You can have that until you use it or you hit a rest, which is like, it fizzles out because you're taking a rest, so don't worry about it. Fair enough. You can use an action to choose one creature you can see within 30 feet of you. This can be you. I guess if you can see yourself. That would be important. To be the target of the tale's effect. Once you do so, you can't bestow the tale's effect again until you roll it again. Mm-hmm. That's a weird, corner case thing they're trying to get away from there, but
yeah.
You can't like give it to everyone in your group or something like that. You give it to one person the one time and then it's gone until you roll that number again later on a random chance.
One bardic inspiration die to put it into the magical story gun.
Well,
and when that magical story gun fires, it is only the thing that you rolled with the bardic inspiration die. And then you have to reload your bardic inspiration gun.
And it may be a new number this time.
And it might be different.
Well, and the problem is they've brewed themselves into a bit of a corner here, because what they have said is that you've been told a story, and through the knowledge of this story, you get to do a thing. So
which you then immediately forget.
Someone's going to argue that, well, I learned that last time, so can't I just use it?
I should use it again.
And they've had to go, ha, but no, because it has to be random.
Because the ghosts in your blood aren't telling you that story anymore.
And the reality is they're trying to make it a cool flavor thing, and then they went, but it didn't fit the mechanic that we needed. How are we going to get around it? We'll just say that it just is this way, okay?
We'll just sand off some of those rough edges a little bit. All right, you can retain only one of these tales in mind at a time, and rolling on the Spirit's Tales table immediately ends the effect of the previous tale. So if you try to do a new one, the old one ends, even if you just gave it out. If the tale requires a saving throw, the DC is equal to your spell save DC. Interestingly, this whole thing of like keeping a tale in mind that you forget when you cast it and you can only hold one, it's actually similar to old Vancian magic D&D rules, which were about when you memorize a spell, the spell lives in your mind, and once you cast it, it leaves your mind and you have to go rememorize it again.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a fun little, like, almost Easter egg throwback there. Kind of cool.
I wonder if, language-wise, if they had said that you were like, and maybe this becomes a problem, but if they had said that you were, like, possessed with the knowledge of this story...
That's exactly what I thought.
And that it left you, and that you were almost, like, borderline slightly possessed with whatever storyteller this is, so that then when you cast it, you're no longer, like, really, truly channeling it. It's not like that you've been told a story and you're just remembering it.
You send the ghost away.
You're channeling the story.
You are legitimately channeling it.
Well,
that's what I thought.
The way that some of these abilities on the dice table are worded.
Exactly.
You know, it is like, and the spirit of this fallen warrior shows up and is telling you the story.
Which obviously that's the mechanic they're going for, but it's just the way that they keep saying, like, you have the tail and then you don't, and then the tail, like,
it's a bit
the
clunky
tail lives
wording.
in your brain.
Getting your head around it.
And that's like, and you know people are going to be saying like, oh, but I knew that story before. Whereas if you had just word wise said you're possessed with this story and now you're not, that might have tightened it a little.
One of the things I agree there's a little bit of like clunk there, but one of the things that's not clunky and is actually quite slick is the table itself.
Yeah.
Because it is a 12 option table. But Thomas, I hear you saying, I'm a bard and I only have a D6. How can I ever roll a 12? Well, as you level up, your bardic inspiration die levels up to higher numbers or higher levels of dice. And so as a higher level bard, you can roll higher on the table. And let me tell you, the higher abilities are the better abilities.
Yeah, this is actually a super interesting and neat way to handle a mechanic like this.
It's not like you say, at this level, you then introduce it, and now it's just like...
It just gives you more options.
Part of the natural,
and you can, when you're at a lower level, you can't get to the higher stuff on the table.
Yeah. You can only roll between 1 and 6, but once you level up and now your bardic inspiration's a D8, you've unlocked 2 new options on the table, and that's pretty cool.
The only thing that Thomas and I had discussed previously to this about this table is it might help it feel cooler if maybe there was like a modifier that you applied to the roll.
Or had the option
at higher levels, possibly, so that by the time that I have the option of all 12, I use my ability and I roll a 2. It's just disappointing. Mm-hmm. Whereas if there was a modifier...
Yeah, they have built into the class, like, sometimes you don't get the story you want. And it's like, fair, I guess. But if I roll the, like, level 1 one, it's not that useful or good. I really want one of the higher level ones. my only option is to just roll again. And it's like, well, I just burned a Bardic Inspiration.
Yeah, but also if you always had a modifier that you added and for some reason you wanted a lower one, then that might
no, for sure. That's why I was wondering if maybe it could be something you could choose to add or at a higher level.
Or very similar to like the clairvoyance or divination spells where it's like if you have something that the target of your spell, you know, if you have a personal object or a lock of their hair, that there's a modifier to the saving throw they're making. You know,
get higher.
So a qualified modifier.
Yeah, qualified modifiers are it's like, you know, if it's dusk, you know, because that's when the spooks come out.
Sure.
You get a +1 to your modifier or something.
Yeah, definitely. Or even maybe, and they don't do this, but, you know, maybe something similar to the... I think it's the Wild Magic Sorcerer, roll twice and pick which one you want to happen.
I was just thinking that at a higher level would be
Basically
nice.
giving you advantage on it. Yeah. It's like, pick whichever one you'd rather have. But anyway, let's read through them real quick. We'll kind of power through these. They're all pretty simple effects, but there's some cool ones in there, especially at the top. The tails all have like a name, and then the flavor, and then a mechanic. So the first tail is the tail of the beast. You recite the tale of a clever animal. For 1 minute, the target has advantage on wisdom perception checks and advantage on attack rolls against a creature if another enemy is within 5 feet of it and that enemy isn't incapacitated. So you basically become like a wolf. You get keen senses and pack tactics. Pretty cool.
Okay.
The Tale of the Warrior. You recount the story of a renowned duelist. Make a melee spell attack against the target as an attacking spectral warrior briefly appears in an unoccupied space within 5 feet of the target before vanishing. On a hit, the target takes force damage equal to 2 rolls of your Bardic Inspiration die plus your Charisma modifier.
Bit of an object lesson there, if you will.
Yeah. And this is within a creature you can see within 30 feet. So it's cool. It's a melee spell attack that can happen on somebody 30 feet away.
Well, it's a melee spell attack because technically
the warrior's the one
warrior is making the melee spell attack.
Like unto casting a touch spell through a familiar.
Kind of,
yeah. Bringing it back around.
Or more, or like your spiritual weapon for a cleric.
Yeah. Definitely.
Okay, yeah, but I was just referencing the thing that we had said.
That.
Okay.
Bean was doing a callback, you see. The Friend's Tale. Oh, you recite the tale of friends who found each other in the afterlife.
Aww.
The target... Does that mean that they became friends in the afterlife? Or does that mean that they were friends and then they were reunited in the... I like the idea that 2 ghosts made friends.
that they were just like, hey, you want to be friends?
Like,
He's
one
like,
is
you
from
haunting this place too?
One's from the Byzantine Empire and one is from, like, the Victorian era. And they're just like, oh, hey.
But as ghosts, they hang out. And they're like, oh, dude.
That's pretty
cool. The target and another creature of its choice it can see within 5 feet of it regain hit points equal to a roll of your Bardic Inspiration die plus your Charisma modifier. So you can pick yourself and your friend, which is pretty nice, or 2 of your teammates. Pretty good. Runaway. You tell the tale of an adventurer that could escape any confinement.
He bravely fled.
He really Houdini'd his way out. The target can immediately use its reaction to teleport up to 30 feet to an unoccupied space it can see. When the target teleports, it can choose a number of creatures it can see within 30 feet of it up to your Charisma modifier, minimum of 1, to immediately use the same reaction. So you can teleport your whole group out of there. Be like, actually, we're out. Deuces.
This is like one of my favorite lower number ones. Like it's super fun.
It's very helpful.
Honestly, it's really good, especially when you're like not in combat. It's just a movement mechanic.
Yeah.
If you can happen to roll it and you're like, hey, we need to teleport 30 feet up this cliff face. Perfect. Avenger. You recount the tale of an avenging knight. For 1 minute, whenever a creature the target can see within 30 feet of it is damaged by a creature, the target can use its reaction to deal force damage equal to a roll of your Bardic Inspiration die to the attacker. There's no roll. There's no attack roll. They just deal that damage, friends.
I feel like it has to be that way, because you already can't choose which of these you get.
Yeah, exactly.
So it has to just go off.
They just have their reaction. They just go, no, you take the damage. You don't get to get out of this one. I had to roll this specific one on a D12 table. Please, come on, let me have this. Hero, you speak the tale of an epic hero. Choose a creature you can see within 30 feet of you. The target gains temporary hit points equal to a roll of your Bardic Inspiration die plus your Bard level. While it has these temporary hit points, the target's walking speed increases by 10 feet. You are healthy and speed. Fast.
So it's important to note too, like that when you get this ability at 3rd level, that is as high as you can go. Everything after this point is only once you have advanced in level high enough to increase the size of your Bardic Inspiration die.
Correct. Yeah, those first 6 are the table for you for a little ways of your Bard leveling, until you start getting higher level dice, which unlock the next few. Number 7, Fae. You recount the tale of a mischievous Fae. The target must succeed on a wisdom saving throw or become charmed by you until the end of its next turn. The charmed target must use its action to make a melee attack against a creature other than itself that you mentally choose. The target can act normally on its turn if you choose no other creature.
I do like that you don't have to say, I choose Charlie, because then Charlie can leave.
Yeah.
But if Charlie doesn't know he's getting targeted, that's fair.
It's going to get him at least, 8. Dark Spirit. You speak a dreadful tale of a slayer in the dark. The target becomes invisible until the end of its next turn, or until it hits a creature with an attack. If it hits a creature with an attack during this invisibility, the creature takes necrotic damage equal to a roll of your Bardic Inspiration die and is frightened of the target until the end of its next turn.
Thank God it wasn't darkness.
Yeah, for real. Cast darkness.
Oh no.
If you cast this on your party rogue, they will love you forever. Give them that attack with advantage for that sneak attack and extra necrotic damage and frightened.
Very cool.
Pretty good. Giant. You speak of the deeds of a mighty giant. Each creature of the target's choice it can see within 30 feet of it must make a strength saving throw, taking force damage equal to 2 rolls of your Bardic Inspiration die on a failed save, and is knocked prone. A creature that succeeds on its saving throw takes half as much damage and isn't knocked prone. A lot of these also, almost every single one of them, it uses a roll of your Bardic Inspiration die to govern some part of the ability, which, as you're leveling up, yet again, that die gets bigger and bigger and can be a bigger number every time. So that's pretty sweet. Twice your Bardic Inspiration die at level, 3 is only like 12, but twice your Bardic Inspiration die at higher levels can be like 16 or 24. It's not too bad. Dragon. You breathe the poem of a wrathful dragon. The target magically spews fire from their mouth in a 30-foot cone. Each creature in that area must make a dexterity saving throw, taking fire damage equal to 3 rolls of your Bardic Inspiration die on a failed save, or half as much on a successful one.
Love it.
Now, this one's interesting because like it says, you can choose yourself or you can choose other people with it. It doesn't say that your target has a choice to receive it or not.
It doesn't care if it's willing.
Does it say...
You can make someone toast their own...
No, it does not care.
Yeah, it doesn't care. So you can target an enemy who just happens to be looking at all of his bandit buddies, and you make him roast them alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, really good. If he's in, you pick someone in the middle of their camp or something like that. Like, there's no direction he can aim that to not hit somebody.
Yep. He's just eating some spicy soup, and then he burps and just, sets his whole camp on fire.
Or you have that one pacifist member of the group that just not helping at all, and you're just fine, and you just make them shoot fire out of their face.
Oh no! Their moral dilemmas. Oh no.
Devastating.
All right. Celestial. You speak of the exalted deeds of a Celestial. The target regains hit points equal to 2 rolls of your Bardic Inspiration die plus your Bard level. And you end 1 disease or condition from the following lists affecting the target. Blinded, deafened, paralyzed, petrified, or poisoned.
Nice.
It's like lesser restoration right there. Not too shabby. Unknown. The number 12, the final one, the unknown spirit. You utter an incomprehensible fable from a being beyond the stars.
Oh, man. Speaking in tongues.
When you pull out your spirit board and you're like, what's your name? And it just starts giving you a lot of consonants and you're like, oh no.
This isn't good. Or they're stuttering.
Either it's not working or some crazy stuff is gonna go down.
It's gonna go down. Choose a creature you can see within 30 feet of you. Yeah, that's already... Okay. The target must succeed on an intelligence saving throw or take psychic damage equal to 3 rolls of your Bardic Inspiration die.
Which at this point are D12s.
D12s. Mm-hmm. And the target is unable to speak any language for 1 minute.
So this is like some Cthulhian exposure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely supposed to be. It's great because that's honestly very similar to that subclass I designed.
It sure is. We should do an episode on it.
We will do an episode about it at some point, yeah. I designed a School of Madness for the wizard, which is all about being a Lovecraftian researcher. And you deal a lot of psychic damage, and people go crazy around you.
Nice.
Very good.
So but not as crazy as you know.
When you do these effects, do you just know the story in your heart, and then, like, the effect happens? Or do you have...
No,
you have to tell the story.
Yeah. It says in each one, you speak, or you breathe the poem, or you utter the tale. So you must be doing that as part of the ability.
So your turn is a vine, right? You know, like it's 6 seconds.
It's 6 seconds.
I know, that is the weird thing about it.
So your stories have to be like, yo, this giant was Kronk, and then, like, it happens.
Yes.
Like,
I feel like
you just, like, all you have time to get out is, have you heard of the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise? And, like, then you don't get to tell the story.
That's it.
And then their brain explodes.
As I was reading through these on my own, I ended up feeling like, for myself, the theater of the mind, the way that I picture it happening, is more like you sort of channel the character from the story who, like, utters a few, like, sentences of, like, I strike from the shadows, and then they, like, stab you, and that's it. Like, you're not telling the whole story, you just, like, kind of channel the dark spirit's energy.
Yeah, you're not doing, like, a Once Upon a Time. Like, if you get the Houdini one, you can, like, shout out, like, Houdini sends his regards, and then you all teleport
You just shout an anime catchphrase.
Yeah. You call out your attack like an anime.
Yeah. And, like, if you get the warrior one, it just says, like, for the glory of Talos!
Maybe,
and that's
but it does say you recite the tale of a clever animal.
Yeah. That's why I was saying just kind of in my head it works better.
Wolves are sneaky.
And then someone stands up and is like, sorry, that did not have a beginning, middle, end. What was the inciting incident?
You recite the tale of a clever animal. One time, a bird stole my lunch. Now I get advantage on my attack roll.
Now, the other implications are that, like, as long as the effect is in play, that is
you could be telling
you speaking during your turns to tell the story.
Oh,
sure.
I guess maybe you could have told the story earlier, and then that effect just stays
And then we
with
just
you.
have flashbacks to that story when you told it that one
You're
time.
not sitting there being like, yo, ravens can use crosswalks, like trying to say a clever animal story as fast as you can. Maybe earlier when you channel it, you can tell the full story, and then it's just charged.
It is sort of like it's like a 2-part thing. You use your bonus action to learn the story. So I can have my warrior story, but then I can use an action to give that to somebody during combat. So I can prep this beforehand and have one in my head ready to go.
So maybe
and be like, I've got a story of a beast.
Yeah, like the telling of the story maybe isn't the thing that causes it. But I do, if I was a DM and someone was this, I would make my bard, I would give them 10 seconds to come up with a different story for each one every time. And they would have to do that.
Improv session, go. Okay, there was an angry pickle. He was so ugly. Yeah.
It's the funniest thing I've ever seen.
It's the funniest thing I've ever seen. All right, 6th level College of Spirits feature Spirit Session. Everybody hold hands. I'll light the candles. You can channel spirits to gain insights into magic. You can conduct an hour-long ritual channeling spirits, which can be done during a short or long rest, using your spiritual focus.
Nice.
You can conduct the ritual.
Well, you have to conduct all rituals with that accent, is the thing.
You can conduct the ritual with a number of creatures equal to your proficiency bonus, including yourself.
Okay.
At the end of the ritual, you temporarily learn one spell of your choice from any class. The spell you choose must be a level equal to the number of creatures that conducted the ritual or less. The spell must be of a level you can cast, and it must be in the school of divination or necromancy.
So there is the limit, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Any spell of your choice, except not.
Anything you can imagine.
As long as
it's
clairvoyance.
Yeah. The chosen spell counts as a bard spell for you, but doesn't count against the number of bard spells you know. Once you perform the ritual, you can't do so again until you start a long rest, and you know the chosen spell until you start a long rest.
So it's probably something you'll do like every long rest.
Pretty much. Before you go to bed every night, you're like, party, gather around, I'm going to do my spirit
Everyone
thing.
hold hands.
And if everybody agrees to it, you've probably got like a level 4 or 5 spell or whatever.
This is an interesting thing where it's like you have to literally get the rest of your party to agree to help you with the ritual.
Yeah.
And like while it only has benefits for you, like mechanically there's no reason why someone wouldn't do this.
Except if they're playing that freaking paladin that ain't gonna be part of that spirit stuff.
Yeah.
Interestingly, it says you can conduct the ritual with a number of creatures equal to your proficiency bonus. It does not say equal to your proficiency bonus or less. So do I have to get exactly that number of creatures?
That limits the kind of spells that you can do.
The later part does. That part is... I don't.
So part of it is
I don't know if
like,
that's intentional or
I want to learn
not.
a really juiced up spell, and I need one more person to be able to do it.
Basically, the highest you can do is with this. The highest you can get is a 6th level spell.
I mean, basically, what you're doing is you are using your party kind of as a spiritual focus.
It has to include yourself. So the highest you can do with this is a 5th level spell.
5th level, yeah.
I don't know, because I feel like in D&D it can be a little inconsistent, the word can, whether it says you conduct or you can conduct, if that makes it optional or not, isn't necessarily consistent.
Well, luckily enough, this is Unearthed Arcana playtest material. And
so
that is
do whatever you want.
That is exactly the feedback to give of that is a little tiny bit too vague. That can. What does that mean?
Does that mean
what number
am
I allowed to?
Yeah.
It just says
yes.
creatures. It doesn't say players or humanoids or
people.
Okay.
You just have like an army of rats.
A horse.
Okay. You're right.
Conduct this with.
Or with your magical secrets, you took Ray's Dead.
I like the idea that everyone goes to bed and you get all of their horses in a circle and you light a candle. And they're like, what are you doing with our horses? And you like look up,
very
don't
funny.
worry.
And your urchin's pet mouse is in the circle.
You've stolen.
That's so funny.
Your ranger's beast companion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Hey, dude, can I borrow your bird? What are you gonna do with it? I'm just gonna hold its hand.
Nothing.
I just want to hold its hand while I complete an hour-long ritual where I speak to the spirits of the dead.
All right,
It'll be fine.
If you can get Fabio to sit still for an hour, be my guest.
Also,
he's a little terror.
Even though it has the limitation of just 2 schools of magic and up to level 5, it is a decent number of spells.
It is.
Well,
there's some good stuff in there.
Yeah.
What this is really great for is this is always a thing that it bugs me when it happens, and I know it's part of gameplay, but there's that, because you can do this during a short rest. And yes, usually when you need a spell, you need it spur of the moment. But there's that moment of planning where you're like, oh, we're about to go do this. And maybe we don't have time for a long rest and whoever it is that can prepare spells. But someone's like, oh, I didn't prepare a spell of blankety blank. Any spells that have to do with this. And this gives you that opportunity to go, okay, well, if we have an hour,
gather around.
I can prepare something that we didn't think we would need to be prepared for today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's a good point.
But it's got stuff like, so it's very interesting because the divination side is like a bunch of utility stuff like detect magic or scrying or augury. And the necromancy side is like all of the spells that do necrotic damage and animate dead.
It's not too shabby. I like also the idea that it's like you learn the spell because a ghost taught it to you.
Yeah, that's fun.
That's fun.
I do like the idea that ghosts will only teach people spooky spells. They
they can't.
They refuse to teach anything else.
I could have taught you fireball, but check out this ray of enfeeblement.
My personal favorite spell has been Otto's Irresistible Dance, but I guess I'll teach you, I don't know, Ray's dead.
But, like, maybe the ghosts do want to teach you other spells, but you're such a spooky boy that you're like, I refuse to learn anything that isn't spooky.
It's a self-imposed
You're like,
rule.
actually, that doesn't really fit my aesthetic,
It doesn't
TM.
fit my vibe. Sorry.
Do you want to learn mending just for a little bit? Actually,
No.
I was really thinking, like,
Can I get chill touch? I want to make that spooky hand appear.
something necrotic, man.
Guys, don't worry. One of the spells you can learn is the cantrip True Strike.
Nice. Just what we all want.
That's necrotic?
No, that's divination.
Yeah, I know.
The 14th level College of Spirits feature, Mystical Connection. Your connection to spirits has become semi-permanent. Whenever you use your Tales from Beyond feature, you can roll a d6 and use it instead of expending a Bardic Inspiration die. Very cool. You basically can roll on that table as much as you want, as long as you always use a d6 for it.
So
You still use your Bardic Inspiration die for the Tale's effect without expending it. And so if the effect asks you, deal damage equal to a roll of your inspiration die, you'll still roll your inspiration-sized die for that, but it doesn't
at this point is
cost,
a d12, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't cost your Bardic
But if you're willing to only roll for ones up to the 6th one, you can do it for free.
You can do it infinitely.
Yeah.
Any of the first 6, you can just keep rolling till you get the right one. Till you get the one you like. You could be like, hello, are you the runaway? No, your friends? Get out of here. Hello?
Stop telling me about the warrior. I want a runaway story.
Yeah.
Which is a little weird. I get that it's like built there so that you would have to keep spending bonus actions to use it.
In
but
combat, that isn't really feasible.
Yeah. Because outside of combat, I would just say pick which one you want.
Well,
you know what I mean? Like,
at
if
this
I can roll
point-
infinite times for no cost, let me just pick the one I want.
Yeah, I mean,
but during
like,
combat,
you do get to hold it, like, for the rest
Yeah.
of the day. So.
Exactly, yeah. But
Yeah.
during combat, if I want a new one, I do have to spend a bonus action,
Yeah.
so I do have to do that every time. Yeah.
I like the idea that like the spirit that talks to you is just this like one old man that kind of only tells the same story, and you're like, "Hey, Clarence, I've heard that one. Like, one time there was this beaver, and he was very clever." And you're like, I've heard.
Yeah,
You told me about your beaver, Clarence.
Really? I told you the beaver.
Thomas,
Yeah.
with your reference to the fact that it does take a bonus action to pick these, so you can't just spam it in combat, I looked back, and so you have to take a bonus action to load the story into our Bardic Inspiration gun.
Into the gun. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this takes an action to use the Bardic Inspiration. So I didn't read that before.
Does it?
It didn't set in. So it does take basically your whole turn to start any of these.
What do you? I'm not sure if I get what you mean here.
So
It's an action to
while
do
you
the
are
effect,
holding your
yeah.
spiritual focus, you
Yeah.
can use a bonus action to expend one of your Bardic Inspiration and roll on the Spirit's table. You store that until you use it. You can use
using
an
it is
action
the
to
action.
choose one creature you can see to be the target of the spell's
Gotcha.
effect, or
Correct.
the tail's effect. So it does.
Yep.
It's not use a bonus action and then that same the effect can happen when you choose it. It's use a bonus action, and then while you're holding the story, you have to then use an action at some point in the future.
Well, no, because you can re-roll without using that first action.
Right. You don't have to
Yeah.
use it again, but you have to use a bonus action to load the gun and an action to fire it. Kind of thing.
Correct. Yes, correct.
So that is something to keep in mind with some of these abilities.
It's not just a thing about you now. You still have to do
You still
Yes.
have to.
You have to trigger it at
spend
some
your
point.
action instead of casting a spell or something like that.
All right, so that wraps up the College of Spirits. I think it's a really flavorful class. We mentioned there's some kind of clunk and clank to it, but there's also some really clever design to it.
It is very fun. I think
I think it's the
interesting-
kind of-
Oh, sorry.
I just want to say, I think it's the kind of design that I'd like to encourage
Yeah.
Wizards of the Coast to do more of. Like, there's more going on here than they do with a lot of their subclasses, and I like that.
Well,
Whether or not it's all perfectly, like, streamlined, not quite, but,
It's pretty solid. I feel like the changes
it's got
that are
a
needed
solid-
are pretty minor.
Yeah, it's got a solid flavor and an interesting mechanic that I haven't really seen before. Cool. That's what I'm looking for in a new subclass.
I mean, it is about as solid as many things that are like standard issue in D&D already.
Yeah, definitely.
And I mean, I do love that you wouldn't think this would be a bard, because of how spoopy and, like, the idea of it. But they just went full... I do want to see the college that this bard went to.
The physical college.
It's just the university campfire out in the Appalachian Mountains.
Is it just the abandoned hospital outside of the town and the goth kids, like, teach this to you?
That hospital burned down 75 years ago.
I thought you were going to say that hospital's been dead for 50 years.
That hospital's been dead for 50 years.
Yeah, I think this is a really cool design space. As far as, like, the random table aspect of it, I don't know how I feel about that being associated with a bard that's about storytelling. I love entering the space of storytelling for bards. And I love the concept of this random table choosing an effect and getting bigger and better as you level up. But I don't know if that works for the exact flavor that they
Here is the thing, though. I don't think the flavor was about storytelling. I think the flavor was ghosts give you superpowers.
Right. Well, and that's what I'm saying. Like I like all of these pieces individually. Part of my critique is that I don't know if they all go together at the same time.
Fair enough, but fair.
I think that there's a good place. I saw somebody online talking about, like, this is the best, like, shaman class.
Yes, this is very cool for, like, a shaman.
But as far as being a bard, like the bardic storytelling performance, there's, like, sure, there is that with telling the stories, and especially being, like, a fortune teller, but nothing in here is about fortune telling.
Yeah. No.
It's just about, like, a spirit who knows a guy, which is much more shamanistic. That'll wrap up our first half of our discussion of Unearthed Arcana 2020 Subclasses, Part 4. If you enjoyed this first half, please like the video and subscribe for future D&D content. Comment below your thoughts on the College of Spirits for the Bard, and be on the lookout for Part 2, where we discuss the Warlock Undead Patron. The second half of this document. The podcast was getting too long for one video, so we split it into two for easy listening. It should come up next in a little playlist we've made once we've published it, so stick around for that. But otherwise, keep on adventuring. We'll see you next time.